Welcome to Second Take. Today we're diving into the dangerously fine art of rebranding dictatorship and redefining democracy. In Kenya, the Blood Parliament documentary drops a gut punch, unveiling the bloody aftermath of last year's protests. Gen Z stood up to Ruto's tax hikes, and the government's response? A hail of bullets. It's not just a protest, it's the start of a generational clash. Meanwhile, in Gabon, General Brice Oligui Nguema, who overthrew Ali Bongo, just crowned himself president in a democratic election. Spoiler alert, no real opposition, no real debate, just a military leader in a suit playing at legitimacy. The African Union, always eager to endorse the latest charade, gave it a thumbs up. 2 countries, 2 authoritarian performances, and one clear takeaway. Whether by bullet or ballot, control is the name of the game. But wait, it gets better. Global Take this week shines a spotlight on Donald Trump, whose second term has turned into an economic dumpster fire. He's slapping tariffs on China, launching his golden age for America, but surprise, it's actually a 145% increase on pain for the average American. It's like giving a toddler the keys to a car and then blaming the brakes when they crash into a wall. Trump's trade war is making corn farmers wish for peace talks, and his approval ratings are plummeting faster than a bad stock pick. But Trump's ego refuses to let a little thing like a failing economy or collapsing popularity get in the way of a good PR stunt. The real question now, what happens when global leaders, whether in Nairobi, Libreville, or Washington, think they can just make up the rules as they go? Let's dig into it all on Second Take. In the heart of Nairobi, the air was thick with defiance on June 25, 2024. The sun blazed over Kenya's parliament, where thousands of young protesters dubbed Gen Z gathered in a vibrant, chaotic symphony of resistance. They carried Bluetooth speakers, water bottles, and Kenyan flags, their voices united against the finance bill, a proposed law that would impose heavy taxes on essentials, squeezing an already struggling populace. This was no ordinary protest. It was a generational awakening, a clash between a tech-savvy youth and a government led by President William Ruto, a man whose leadership would soon be cast in a grim light by the BBC Africa Eye documentary Blood Parliament. Here is the Second Take coverage of the protests. Now, in Kenya, a proposed finance bill ignited a wildfire of protests across Nairobi and other cities. The bill, which seemed to be written by someone who's never shopped for bread or owned a car, proposed tax hikes and levies that threatened to turn the country's cost of living crisis into a full-blown disaster. Leading the charge against this fiscal folly were Kenya's Generation Z, the fearless and smartphone-savvy youth who've had enough of the government's nonsense. Have a look.
This bill, we can't let it pass. We want to reject it completely, and that's why we're here. It's our duty to protest against the bill. And so I'd urge all of you, reject the finance bill, know your rights, know what the finance bill is saying, educate yourselves, and reject this bill. Right now, we're not paying taxes, but we're fighting for our future. So we're young now, but that's what we need. We need young people to fight for our future rights, our future Kenya, and to just overthrow this silly government, man. We're tired. Yep. Social media, I'm telling you, Ogopa Gen Z. Ogopa Gen Z. Can you see these guys? Like, Ogopa Gen Z. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, everywhere online. Nobody came and paid. Nobody. We just came because we're passionate about this cause and we want to reject that bill. Kenyans are together. These streets are full. This is nothing compared to what we had on Tuesday. And I'm just proud to be a Gen Z and I'm proud to be part of this revolution.
This bill was a disaster. This bill is assuming that the Kenyans tax rate should move to a higher rate regime, which is not comfortable for this country at all.
Tumeambiwa yataondolewa, lakini sababu za msingi za kuuliza kwa nini
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From the very onset, allow me to
Let's talk about the African Gen Z. See, they are different, and William Ruto is finding out how. See, Gen Z Africans are a force to be reckoned with, uniquely blending digital savvy with a fearless spirit untethered by the shadows of past political fears. Unlike their predecessors, who often navigated the murky waters of repression and censorship, this generation is emboldened by the connectivity and global perspective that the internet provides. Politically astute and unrelenting, they sidestep the archaic traditions and norms, channeling their energy into innovative forms of activism and advocacy. Their upbringing in a comparatively freer environment has cultivated a boldness within them, empowering them to speak truth to power with a refreshing audacity. They are reshaping the political landscape with a blend of creativity, fearlessness, and a keen awareness of their unique potential to drive change. The protests were a blend of the modern and the traditional. Young citizens chanted anti-government slogans, waved placards, and in a distinctly 21st century twist, filmed the clashes with police on their smartphones, posting the footage online. The hashtag Occupy Parliament trended, turning the protests into a viral sensation. In a rare twist of fate, it worked. By Thursday afternoon, the government threw in the towel, announcing it would ditch many of the bill's most hated provisions. Bread would remain untaxed, car owners could breathe a little easier, and mobile money transfer fees would stay the same. It's almost like the government remembered that starving and immobile citizens are bad for business. For the youth of Kenya, this victory was a sweet moment of vindication. It showed that organized, tech-savvy activism could make the government actually listen, even if it's just long enough to realize they're about to spark a revolution. So for now, the bread stays affordable, the cars keep running, and the government has one less excuse to siphon off taxpayer money. Because as you can see, the Gen Zs are simply not having it. When the BBC dropped Blood Parliament, they didn't just release a documentary. They cracked open a coffin the Kenyan state had hoped to bury quietly. A stitched-together digital requiem of over 5,000 citizen-sourced images. It chronicled the day when protest met powder, and Parliament became a slaughterhouse draped in red, white, black, and blood. Young Kenyans, armed with nothing but indignation and badly printed placards, stormed Parliament to protest a finance bill fatter than a cabinet allowance. They met bullets instead of debate. The footage, too disturbing for prime time, but perfect for authoritarian archives, showed uniformed security forces, firing live rounds into unarmed crowds. University student Eric Shieni caught a bullet to the skull while running away, because apparently retreat is now provocation. Amnesty put the butcher's bill at 65 dead, 89 missing, and thousands arrested. Kenya's democracy, it turns out, comes with a heavy cover charge. Enter William Ruto, the self-styled hustler-in-chief who rode into the State House on promises of slaying corruption, but ended up taxing bread like it's a luxury import. When the youth called his bluff, he sent them a message written in live ammunition. The Kenya Human Rights Commission didn't mince words. The responsibility lies squarely at Ruto's polished leather shoes. But the president, never one to miss a PR opportunity as well, called the protesters criminals and praised the security forces for protecting the sovereignty of Parliament. Because clearly sovereignty now means shooting software engineers and butchers. The documentary title wasn't poetic. It was literal. Officer John Kaboi was caught on video yelling "Uwa," Swahili for kill, like a budget Tarantino villain moments before bodies hit the tarmac. And in a moment worthy of its own neuro, student journalist Ademba Alance was seen dragging bleeding strangers to safety while waving the Kenyan flag. In Ruto's Kenya, patriotism gets you a bullet and a funeral hashtag. Naturally, the government responded with its usual cocktail of indignation and incompetence. The Nairobi screening was blocked because the truth is dangerous when it's well edited and subtitled. Government mouthpiece Isaac Mwaura called the documentary one-sided, which is rich, coming from an administration that hasn't produced a single conviction out of 60 IPOA probes. In case you're wondering, only 22 of those investigations are complete, because apparently justice is a snail allergic to accountability. Ruto's parliamentary choir sang on coup. MP John Kiari called the BBC's documentary a foreign agenda, because when you have no answers, blame the British. Homa Bay's Peter Kaluma tried to cancel the BBC's license until social media dragged him back into reality. Only Millie or Diambo dared utter something vaguely democratic, warning that gagging the press might, piss off the already bullet-dodging youth. But Kenyans weren't buying the state spin. Hashtag Ruto must go and Blood Parliament trended faster than government tenders disappear. Posts called out the hypocrisy of branding peaceful demonstrations as criminals while shielding trigger-happy state actors behind titles and press conferences. Even Ruto's trip to China was dragged into the fray, with netizens suggesting he timed his absence like a savvy hit-and-run driver. What Blood Parliament really spotlighted was the rage and resilience of a generation with Wi-Fi and no patience. Activists like Hanifa Adan and Boniface Mwangi framed the chaos not as defeat, but as an awakening. The state offered reshuffles and cosmetic reforms like applying lipstick to a corpse. Id Kayole defiant citizens screened the banned documentary like it was a gospel, because when the government bans the truth, people bootleg it with pride. This wasn't just a violent Tuesday in Nairobi. It was an indictment of a regime allergic to dissent and addicted to force. Legal scholars pointed figures at Ruto and his holy trinity of impunity: Murkomen, Kahariri, and Kanja, the Interior CS, Defense Chief, and Inspector General, respectively. Their silence was as deafening as their gunfire. As the sun sets on 2025, Ruto faces a legacy more bloodstained than ballot won. He may have withdrawn the finance bill, but the receipts are in, the footage archived, and the ghosts of parliament are still marching. Kenya's youth have declared, if you tax our future, we will invoice your legacy in blood. In August 2023, General Bryce Cloete Oligui Nguema led a military coup in Gabon, decisively removing President Ali Bongo and dismantling the Bongo family's 55-year grip on power in the oil-rich nation. With Bongo sidelined by health issues from a 2018 stroke and facing criticism for his prolonged rule, Nguema seized the moment. And we were there. We start our stories of the week with the recent events in Gabon, where a military coup thrust the Central African nation into turmoil, unseating the president just minutes after he was named the winner of a contested election. Ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, also known as Ali Bongo, has faced accusations of election fraud and corruption since he began ruling the oil-rich but poverty-stricken nation nearly 14 years ago. He took over from his father, Omar Bongo, who was the president for 42 years, 1967 to 2009. Now, Gabonese President Ali Bongo, speaking from apparent house arrest on Wednesday, asked the international community to make noise to support him and his family in a video shared widely online after military officers declared they had seized power. So naturally, I wondered why he was not appealing to his local support. So, General Bryce Oligui Nguema, who orchestrated the August 2023 coup that ousted President Ali Bongo, went on to reshape the political landscape to secure his dominance while framing it as a democratic restoration. Gabon's junta leader discovers he is the democracy that he promised. Bryce Oligui Nguema, the military strongman who ousted the Bongo family and promised a return to civilian rule, has now decided that he himself is the best civilian for the job, in a move that surprises absolutely no one except those who still believe coups lead to real democracy, and that's some people. Nguema has announced his candidacy for Gabon's presidency, claiming it's what the people want. Never mind that the new electoral laws were conveniently rewritten to favor his bid. Never mind that his speech delivered in the pouring rain was less a rally and more a baptism into authoritarian permanence opponents. What matters is that another African nation is watching military leadership transition, quote unquote, into civilian rule, where the only real change is the removal of the uniform. The Bongo dynasty may be over, but the Gabonese people may soon find out that the new boss looks suspiciously like the old one, just without the last name. Over in Gabon, General Brice Oligui Nguema is proving that the shortest route from military boots to presidential shoes is a well-timed coup and a tailor who can switch epaulets for lapels. After ousting the Bongo dynasty in 2023, Nguema was hailed briefly as a potential savior. He promised to restore democracy, rebuild institutions, and give power back to the people. Spoiler alert, he gave it back to himself. Now, Nguema formally announced he'd be running for president in the very elections he and his transition team are designing. The constitution rewritten, electoral laws revised, opposition marginalized, and the people told that this is what democracy looks like. His campaign slogan might as well have been Nguema 2025. Who else did you think it would be? It's the classic bait and switch. The junta marches in with talk of accountability and reform, then slowly morphs into the same political animal it claimed to devour. Gabon's constitution now fits Nguema like a custom-tailored uniform, neatly pressed, shiny on the outside, but stitched together with military thread. He claims this transition is about healing and unity, but the only thing being unified is state power, funneled directly into his hands with a smile and salutation. This isn't leadership. It's legacy laundering. The Bongos may be gone, but Gabon has traded in a family dynasty for a military monarchy. Same tactics, different logos. And much like Zimbabwe, the media is being reshaped, the laws bent, and the people pacified with patriotic speeches wrapped in barbed wire. It's the soft coup sequel, democracy reloaded. One strong man to rule them all. In the end, Nguema's Gabon and Mnangagwa's Zimbabwe are eerily similar. Countries where revolutions became reruns and liberation movements became lucrative business models. So, the African Union on April 30 triumphantly welcomed Gabon back into the fold, just in time for General Brice Oligui Nguema to swap his military boots for presidential loafers. After all, nothing says return to constitutional order like a former coup leader winning 94% of the vote in an election with all the suspense of a rigged Zimbabwean election. Let's be clear, this wasn't a redemption arc. It was a theater of legitimacy, directed by realpolitik and edited with a blunt knife through the African Charter on Democracy. Article 25.4, that irksome clause barring coup leaders from standing in post-coup elections, was apparently lost behind a desk at the Peace and Security Council or used to wrap samosas during the PSC's fact-finding visit to Libreville. In Oligui's Gabon, the coup came clothed in applause. Ali Bongo, the man whose family had ruled for over 5 decades like the country was a hereditary oil well, was ousted hours after yet another victory in a dubious election. The military struck before the ink had dried and Libreville erupted in celebration. The AU, that brave guardian of democracy, reacted with a gentle timeout. Then came the magic trick. The general turned transitional president promised a 2-year detox plan for the state, made a few high-profile arrests, including Bongo's kin, and posed for photos with opposition figures and Western diplomats like a man scrubbing blood off his resume. And voila! In April 2025, the man who said he wouldn't run ran and won by a margin that could only mean either divine favor or a severe underinformed electorate. The AU, ever eager to promote African solutions to African problems, provided those solutions don't threaten anyone in power, nodded approvingly. Yes, the election was questionable. Yes, key opposition figures were conveniently sidelined. But hey, there were ballot boxes and ink-stained fingers, weren't there? By readmitting Gabon, the AU has effectively pioneered a new doctrine, the doctrine of convenient constitutionalism. According to this doctrine, a coup is only a problem until the tanks stop moving. If the junta promises elections, delivers them in form, if not in substance, and gets a tidy enough result, the AU will roll out the red carpet and sweep the principles under it. Let's be honest, the AU's moral compass isn't broken. It's just GPS tracking the strongest oil contracts. Gabon's return wasn't about democratic revival. It was about managing the optics of one of Central Africa's better-dressed juntas, with Oligui posing as a reformer, promising economic development and climate stewardship. The PSC could pretend it had struck a balance between legality and pragmatism. Spoiler, it hadn't. And remember Chad? That's where the AU first failed its own test, letting Mahamat Deby run for president after his father died in office and he took over with military backing. That case set the precedent. Gabon just took notes and executed the sequel, with better PR and fewer bullets. So, what happens when you reward a coup like the one in Gabon? The answer is simple. You get more coups. Since 2020, 8 African governments have been toppled by men in uniform. The AU, once vocal about democratic norms, now mumbles its condemnations like a priest caught at a club. Its zero-tolerance policy on unconstitutional takeovers has become more of a wait-and-see-if-they-wear-a-suit-later approach. What's at stake is not just the credibility of the AU, it's the future of African governance. If strongmen can seize power, hold choreographed elections, and then get handshakes in Addis Ababa, why bother with genuine democracy? Why build institutions when military uniforms make better campaign posters? Gabon may seem stable for now, but democracy, real democracy, isn't about calm. It's about choice. It's about opposition, scrutiny, messiness. Oligui's Gabon is calm because dissent is being tightly managed, not because it has been addressed. Power still rests with the man who took it by force and then blessed his own path to legitimacy with an election that was as inclusive as a palace dinner. So the AU has a choice to make, though increasingly it seems like it's already made it. It can double down on principles, enforce Article 25, subsection 4, and prove that coups are not shortcuts to power, or it can keep rubber-stamping transitions that walk, talk, and rig like autocracies. In the meantime, General President Oligui will enjoy his AU membership card, oil exports, and a fancy seat at the next summit on democratic renewal in Africa. And the next ambitious colonel somewhere in the Sahel is watching closely, polishing his boots, and planning his own transitional roadmap. After all, the lesson is clear. In today's Africa, you don't need to end a dynasty. You just need to become one in like a new outfit. You are still with Second Take. Let's take a break and have a look at my TikToks of the week.
I don't want to be a better person. I want to be the worst. I don't want a job. I just want to do robberies and heists. Going to clubs is what I want. I just want to party all night with women and get drunk every day. I just want to get high. And even now, I'm high, like a highlighter. I want tattoos on my face and inside my livers. Even my homies know that I was raised by the streets and nobody else. I love women so much.
A lot of people assume that I'm American because I enunciate my R's, but there's actually a way to tell whether someone's American just by looking at their palm. Did you know that? No? There's a way to tell, like, I'm not American. So as you can see on my palm, there's 3 lines, and in my palm, there's no gun.
Donald Trump's second term has kicked off like a fireworks show lit in a hurricane, loud, chaotic, and likely to burn someone's house down. His big move, a jaw-dropping 145% tariff on Chinese goods, which he declared would launch a new golden age for America. What it actually launched was a steep drop in the stock market, a spike in grocery bills, and a whole lot of voters wondering if they'd accidentally voted for economic whiplash. Farmers in the Midwest, once MAGA's most loyal choir, are now stuck selling corn to no one while China shops elsewhere. Meanwhile, Trump's approval ratings are dropping faster than Wi-Fi at a Trump rally, crashing into the low 40s just 100 days in. Independents are fleeing, Democrats are sharpening their pitchforks, and even some Republicans are nervously asking if tanking the economy was really the plan. But Trump, never one to blink at a nosedive, is brushing off the polls as fake and insisting things are going great, like a chef proudly serving a burnt steak and calling it blackened cuisine. His executive orders are flying like confetti at a dictator's birthday, bypassing Congress entirely because governing with checks and balances is just so last season. And while he blames everyone from China to the media for the backlash, the real issue is hard to ignore. Americans are feeling the pinch, and many aren't buying the America First pitch when it comes with a side of rising prices and economic anxiety. Whether this trade war becomes Trump's grand legacy or just another chapter in the art of stepping on one's own shoelaces remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: this sequel presidency is already off script, and the audience is getting restless. So, Kenya bleeds out its truth in blood parliament, while Gabon dresses up a coup like a democratic debutante. And as these two states play dress up with legitimacy, Trump's doing his best to turn the global economy into a circus. From military-led elections in Gabon to trade wars in America, it's clear, whether you're in Africa or America, the script is the same. Power plays the game, and the people pay the price. The real takeaway? Ruto's Kenya and Oligwi's Gabon are showing the world just how far you can push the boundaries of democracy before they snap. And as for Trump, he's rewriting the playbook on economic disaster and calling it America First. But who's counting the cost when the house burns down? From coups to tariffs, the global stage has been set. Let's just hope the audience isn't too shocked when the curtains fall. You've been watching Second Take, where the truth never goes out of style, even if the leaders do. Good night.